on the CPP's plan to hold what it calls We Are Tired Suffering rally to be staged at the SKD Sports Complex. Frankly speaking, no serious political party of substance, focus, and that is prepared to participate, that is preparing to participate in elections, will organize itself under the pretense of bringing people together and use that occasion for what may appear to be unclarified. We know the Ministry of Justice has given them the right to go ahead and have the rally. Rally, in constitutional and connotative definition, rally sounds very peaceful. Rally is a gathering, it's an assembly. It sounds very peaceful. But we want to urge our friends and brothers in the CPP, Mr. Brown, who has been so vociferous in his attack on the incumbent ruling party and government, and specifically President Weah, because his idea is President Weah is indisciplined, he's wasteful, he's mismanages the country's resources, and all of these, I think, it's interesting in views. Those are the views. Good for him. But when you try to create the impression that the suffering, the suffering of the Liberian people center around regime and not systems and structures and the state, that's what we try to come in to make some clarification. So you talk about suffering, you have to be definitive. What do you mean by suffering? Suffering from war, suffering from what? Poverty, hunger, disease, illiteracy, ignorance, infrastructure underdevelopment, unemployment. These are structural problems of Liberia associated with a failed state that has even collapsed, manifested by civil wars, 14th century civil war. But to insinuate that these are issues that are regime-based and they can be attributed to the failure of one group of people or one man, it's demagoguery, and it is not correct. It's a total misinformation on the problem of the Liberian, misinformation of the Liberian people on the problem. There are certain problems of Liberia. For example, the socio-economic and political problems of Liberia. On the question of unemployment, you got to tie it into a structural economic problem, which, if not addressed, makes any political party that takes the stage to be unpopular. And this is the predicament that we face in Liberia. The Unity Party presided over this country for 12 years, in which Mr. Louis Brown served as Minister of Information and, of course, as Liberia's ambassador to the United Nations. The Unity Party introduced 3 major economic programs: poverty reduction 1, poverty reduction strategy 1, poverty reduction strategy 2, and the agenda for transformation, AFT, the agenda for transformation. Those were 3 key economic policies introduced by the Unity Party for 12 years under Mrs. Johnson, in which Mr. Brown served as a spokesman of government. Now, the poverty reduction strategy 1 and 2 and the agenda for transformation of the Unity Party, they did eradicate poverty, and subsequently when the CDC came in The poverty that was eradicated by the Unity Party was reinstituted by the current government. Now, we don't speak for the CDC, but we don't like for the suffering of the Liberian people to be played on by demon gods. To be a demon god means to play on the emotions of people and not play on their consciences and use their vulnerability for political dividends. And this is why we're trying to see. The Liberian economy, structurally as it is, has an assigned role given to it by the global capitalist system. Our role that is given to us is to be suppliers of cheap natural resources on the basis of unconscionable concession agreements. And we want to receive royalties, fees from the iron ore, the diamond, the timber, and the natural resources of our country. Now, that is a major problem. Now, in order to shift from it, because it means we have to go and confront Firestone to review the concession agreement between Liberia and Firestone. So that is produced in Liberia. It means the national stakeholders, all political parties, opposition and the ruling party need to come together to have a national agenda for the review of our national economy. We have to go and confront Metal Steel. Metal Steel replaced Lamco. Lamco, Metal Steel, all what they've been doing, shipping iron ore from this country. He's a geologist, and he will speak to that. You want to talk about the economy. We have to go and confront Golden Verenum. Golden Verenum is a major oil palm company and other more oil palm companies. What they're doing now, they're producing oil and shipping red oil from Liberia. They should be producing oil products, factories in Liberia. We should now go back to review our maritime policy. You don't forget, the maritime program, for example, came into being under President Tubman. And President Tubman gave the maritime program for its orchestration to the former Secretary of State of the United States of America. His name is somewhere in my record. And through some unconscionable concession agreement. And he fixed the maritime. Today we have a maritime. Liberia does not even have a single ship. You understand me? To talk about the Liberian economy and the structural deficits and impasses of this Liberian economy requires a national dialogue, a national stakeholder dialogue, where all of the major parties, including those that are presiding, those that want to take state power, to review this Liberian economy. Why is it we have an economy of proclaimed $16 billion of direct foreign investment, yet fiscal revenue generated from this economy on an annual basis cannot even reach $1 billion. Now, when you have a $16 billion direct foreign investment capital in your economy, and the economy cannot generate revenue up to $1 billion, that's a contradiction. Now, these are the issues, these are the critical issues that we need to discuss as stakeholders, as political parties, and not revolve these critical issues around regimes. In fact, one of the best persons that were well positioned to have really critically reviewed, overhauled, and reformed the Liberian economy was President Sirleaf. Unfortunately, she reviewed the concession agreements and left them as they were. And in addition to that, there were about scores of concession agreements that were considered to be bogus. Bogus meaning they were not legal, they were fake, and all of this. So the concession contracts that we have in Liberia does not provide for partnership. Concession contracts that we have in Liberia, they do not provide for blending extraction with manufacturing. And as long we dig the iron ore, we tap the rubber and get latex, and we ship the latex to Europe and America. We ship the iron ore, we ship the logs, and we don't create import substitution factories to process these. We'll never have the kind of jobs that we need for the young people of this country. And these are the way we can create skilled jobs, not wheelbarrow pushing, not shoe shop boy. We talk about skilled jobs. And the only way we can create skilled jobs is to stop the export of round logs, blend the extraction of rubber with manufacturing. Ghana and all these places, they produce it. They have rubber factory. Liberia is the largest rubber plantation in the world, 1 million acres of land. Yet we don't have one little factory that produces finished products like condoms, buckets, and plastic cups and others. These are the things we in the opposition should be debating and discussing, and how we can reform the Liberian economy, and let the government ruling tell us what we're saying is wrong. Of course, this is bad under the child stealer regime, and under the child stealer regime, the central bank virtually did not exist. The first central bank was in white flower. Those were times when Mr. Brown and Cummings, they were all part of the Taylor regime. Taylor is in jail, but all of Taylor's wealth and other things, these people know where their wealth and things are. And these are the people who want to take state power. And some of these people, they come to play on the emotions of our people. They say that our people are suffering. They have to tell us what are those characteristics of the suffering. When did the suffering start? Who started the suffering? And I can assure you one thing, from the history of you young people, you are aware that two major periods that brought about the dislocation of the state and the breakdown of law and order was the 1980 coup, and subsequently 14 years of civil war. The Civil War of Liberia, led by the NPFL and the likes of Brown and others, looted this country, plundered the country, all the banks, all these infrastructures, from bond mines, from Lamco, all the earth-moving equipment were looted, plundered, and taken away to Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso and other places. The point we're trying to make, to a very large extent, because of the way in which we see Mr. Brown and Mr. Cummings are taking the debate, we want to punctuate our debate to the extent to say that these people don't have any moral rectitude to discuss the ills of society and the way forward, because they are party to the conflict, they are part of the problem. And if you want to sincerely debate Liberia's socio-economic and political problems, we should link it to the war, the forces of the war, those who brought the war, those who used the war to accumulate and make money and profit. And these are the kind of things. So we have decided to make our contribution to the debate. They should tell us if people are suffering, what kind of suffering, who brought the suffering, when did the suffering come, and what the period, and what solution do they have as political parties who want to take state power. What is your policy on the national economy, based on what I have told you about a national economy in which our natural resources from the time of Barclay, to the time of Tubman, and subsequently to Talbot. It was President Talbot who was making an attempt to revise the Liberian economy. And because what he was doing, the people who assigned us the role that we are only responsible to produce iron ore and to produce iron ore, to produce rubber. And what happened to the value of our iron ore is none of our business. The only thing we get in return are royalties and fees. And as long as we continue to sell our iron ore, allow our iron ore to be mortgaged, our rubber to be mortgaged, and we cannot control the prices and benefit for the value of these natural resources through partnership. You can be the most popular person, you get to power. The popularity is dwindled because the socio-economic situation in Liberia is a major predicament that we need to address from a critical perspective and addressing it, looking at it from a systemic, a structural, then from a mere regime. And we are too educated for somebody to tell us that, oh, you are suffering today, that your where is the cause of your suffering. For me, that's mediocrity. We're too educated and we're too informed to be manipulated in those kinds of thinking. We think that these are very cheap and populist way of trying to buy popularity. If you want to be serious, if you want to be constructive in the debate, then of course you should be professional. And this is where our problem is. President Talbot, prior to his death in 1980, he headed the 16th extraordinary summit of the Organization of African Unity in Liberia. And at the Organization of African Unity, President Talbot drafted what was called the Monrovia Declaration. And you are journalists, you can go and Google the Monrovia Declaration in 1979. The Monrovia Declaration became the recipe for the Lagos Plan of Action. And you are journalists, you must go and Google the Lagos Plan of Action. The Lagos Plan of Action was the economic framework of Africa designed to protect Africa from dependency in international financial system. And because that document represented a threat to the Bretton Woods countries, the IMF, the World Bank, and the Western countries, they killed that Lagos Plan of Action. Today, you will never hear anything about the Lagos Plan of Action. If you want to know why Africa is so economically underdeveloped and the framework that Africa designed to lead to the economic prosperity and development of Africa through the Lagos Plan of Action, if you read that document, you will see that Africa, we are up for help. Like Liberia, Nigeria is the largest oil producer in sub-Saharan Africa. Yet, while Nigeria produces crude oil, Nigeria imports gasoline, refined oil, or products of oil that are being refined. Nigeria does not have a refinery. That's the same problem. 3 years from now, Firestone will be 100 years in Liberia. 3 years from now, Firestone came to Liberia in 1926. We are in 2022, going to 2023. By 2026, Firestone will be 2025. Yeah, 2026. 2026. Firestone will be 1926 to 2026. Firestone will be 100 years in Liberia. 100 years. Doing what? Planting, tapping rubber, and exporting latex. That bullshit. As long as that continues, Liberia will never transcend. And Mr. Cummings, he has expertise in private capital formation. He worked for Coca-Cola. That's a transnational capital. That's an American capital. He worked for Coca-Cola. That is his greatest claim to fame. Now, to be an expert in making private profit, like for Firestone or for Coca-Cola, is different from becoming a national leader and building public-private partnership for public finance and for the building of a nation. Now, so there's a fundamental difference between being an expert in private capital formation, manager, and public-private capital partnership that will enhance national economic development. Now, we're ready for the debate. The reason why we with intervening. We want to push the debate. We are tired of suffering, and you're trying to fool a small jury around here. The same mistake we made in 1979. President Tolbert did not increase the price of rice. It was just a proposal. And then at that time, I was a student activist at the university at the time, 1979, and we went and blindly supported the decision. We blindly supported the decision of the of one of the progressive movement, Progressive Alliance of Liberia, to demonstrate against the increase in the price of rice. And at that time, we made a major mistake. We issued a press release calling on the military, the police, and other people to join the demonstration. President Tolbert was so angry. He invited us to the mansion. And he said, what? He invited the president of the university, the vice president, he invited the political science chairman, Dr. Sawyer, and I was a student leader, and he invited the acting chair of ALSU, was Siafa Kamara. Dusty Wolokoli was chair of ALSU at the time. So when we went, President Tolbert took the press release that we had issued calling on the military and the police to join the demonstration. He knocked it on the table. He said, who issued this release? Calling on my troops, my soldiers, and my police to join a demonstration against the state. That is when I said, damn it. We saw the gravity of the press release we issued at the time based on political euphemism and naivety. He said, who issued this release? And then the president of the University of Liberia said, Siafa, meet your turn now. Spine was going through my spine. The fear was going through my spine. So Siafa come out and stood up. He said, Mr. President, I ordered the issue of the release. He said, what? Then Frank Tolbert, President Pro Tem, he looked at Siafa Kamara, the student leader. He said, young man, he said, what's your name? He said, my name is Siafa Kamara. He said, what? How old are you? He said, I'm 24. Are you married? No, sir. Do you own property? No, sir. But you are irresponsible jiggerflea. Sit down. I mean, went through those humiliations. The point I'm trying to stress here, comrades, is that we have come of age. This is no longer the time to play on the emotions of the young people. This is not the time to engage in demagoguery. You are suffering, you're unemployed, you don't have a job, you can't go to school, you don't have health program. It is a regime problem. It's lie. That is demagoguery. That is manipulation. And this cannot come from people who were actively involved in past government, mortgaged the country, and looted the country through arms under the pretext of fighting war, plundered and looted the country. And then in a post-conflict government, Mr. Brown serving as Minister of Information, and before he became Minister of Information, he had washed his mouth on President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. She had desecrated the government, breaking all kinds of corrupt people in government, this and that. And then I think Mr. Sirleaf capitulated to his pressure and then called him in. But we are from the NDC. The point here is, Louis Brown is a founding chair of the NDC under Duke Mason. I was Secretary General to him. And when it was clear that Duke Mason did not have the financial resources that they had anticipated for the 2011 election, Louis Brown and others resigned from the NDC. And where did he go? He went to the same Unity Party that he had badmouthed and became the senatorial candidate for the Unity Party under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in 2011. You play all kinds of games. I'm a former student leader. The young people of this country deserve better. The young people are the worst that are victims of the system of this country. And you can change regime over and again. We change from Tolbert, from Samuel Doe, Charles Taylor, Bomabol, Sangawolo, Ruth Perry. We have changed so many regimes. Notwithstanding, the socio-economic fundamental issues still remain. And those fundamental issues, if we want to change them, we got to confront Firestone. We got to confront Metal Steel. We got to go back on the drawing board. The national legislature should review all concession agreements, and that no concession agreement should be made without partnership, where Liberians and the government of Liberia can own shares, and we can become shareholders and 50-50 owners. This is the only way we can address. Now, if Louis Brown and Mr. Cummings are critical and in addressing the economy from a systemic, structural perspective like this, they will have our support. But when you engage into demagoguery and you try to play on the emotion of suffering young people and try to confuse them that your problem is your problems are what you are because of the man that you elected in power. And once you remove that man, then automatically when Cummings gets there, then your problem is solved. That's a black lie. It is unscientific. It cannot be proven. And as long as this kind of method of agitation and political debate goes on, it has the propensity to break down the system, break down the country, and bring us back. And for people who work with Charles Taylor, who is currently paying his dues in prison in Britain, they don't have the moral rectitude to be leading any democratic debate in Liberia. If the Liberian people believe that George Manning Weah, who they elected, failed them and they don't want him, the people will decide. But you don't have to instigate and create unnecessary misinformation and blackmail people, so that when people capitulate to your blackmail and they co-opt you into government, and that's your recipe, that's the way you politically, those are your political games. We're here for the debate, and we want to be very short and brief. I want to thank you very much. These are our concerns, and thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Michelle. We will take at least 3 questions, specifically to the issues you spoke to, and then after which we will disperse.
Yeah.
So we'll take Strong FM, Sekou.
Thank you very much. My name is Sekou Aminata Kone,
yeah,
and I do report for Strong FM and Strong TV, Liberia. From your expose is a clear indication that your group is against the planned protest stage that will be staged on December 17th. But I'm concerned, are you against this protest because of the individual Louis Brown who once served as security advisor to Charles Taylor, or you are against this protest because the Liberian people are not suffering as the way they have presented it? One. Secondly, you have admitted that a complex of national issues that you think opposition can engage national government. From your own standpoint, what do you think is the best way forward that opposition can engage national government to solve some of those problems that you just mentioned?
I will start with your second point. And thank you for a beautiful question. Let's start with the second point. And I told you that opposition should be government in waiting. They should all have their clear-cut, well-defined program in all sectors of government. But the fulcrum of the debate in Liberia, particularly after the Civil War, is the economy. It is that, particularly for a man, Cummings, whose claim to fame is from the corporate world as a former vice president of Coca-Cola. But now, Mr. Cummings should have a clear economic on what he wants to do with Liberia when he takes over. The reason why I'm saying this, you go to the United States, and I don't want to compare us so much with the United States, but we need to take cue from the United States, because this is where we borrow from the United States. You can make all the noise, you can all the t-shirts. You don't have an agenda, an agenda. You don't have a manifesto started defining what is your economic agenda. There were 20 or more candidates. You had Joe Biden, you had Kamala Harris, you had Pete Buttigieg, Bernie Sanders, and you name them. I tell you, my son, in all of these things, we have not seen. Now, my party is not as active as it will be in terms of participation in election in 2023 because we have our own internal inhibitations. But no poverty reduction one strategy, poverty reduction strategy one, poverty reduction strategy two, and the AFT. These programs were crafted by international partners here and there. You must have an agenda. The ANC, the oldest national liberation movement in Africa, formed in 1912. Why it was fighting for liberation? It was called land should be to the people because land is a major issue in South Africa. There should be land to the people. Health care, universal health care. They put all of those things in motion. Unfortunately, from many of our guys who call themselves prominent opposition, we don't see any of this. So who are the economic advisors to Minister Kumi?
Follow to that, Mr. Kumi has said on numerous of occasions that he has made several economic policy recommendations to national government, but they have not been listed.
That's not an issue. It's issue nobody. When people are in power on their own agenda, you are in opposition. You don't tell them this is my policy. You implement it. You carve your policy. When they take power and implement your policy, that's what happens.
Additionally, you offer policy brief. The one even you can take quarterly in a year, every quarter, to offer policy brief, and then critique the government. But take for example, we dire suffering. A bishop call all the Christians in Liberia and say, Saint Jesus said you will come in 2,000 years to come, and maybe from the birth of Jesus Christ to now, in 2,000 years, you are not come. Let's gather and then wait for Jesus Christ. That's why you are telling the people, we are tired suffering. They want to leave from Negro Town, leave from Busa Color, leave from every area to go assemble to SKD. Even though these people are doing their pushing wheelbarrow to get their income and go feed their people to curtail the suffering. But here you say, can't assemble, forget about those things. When they go by home in the evening, do they get meal? Will you offer them meal? Because now all their children going to the assembly, that the parents will look for money before they feed the people to curtail their suffering in their own will. Can you compare the suffering Green Brown is going through with the people in Busakola, with the people in Negro Town? So you don't do that. You agitating.
Yes.
And when you agitating, you're trying to create a condition of breakdown of law and order.
Yes.
It's unacceptable. And we can say that as stakeholder, we have to bring the democratic space to being and then sit down, those who plundered the country, to look at them and say, yes, they are talking the truth. No, they are lying.
Thank you. The second to your question is whether or not we support.
How do you make up?
No, hold on. The second question is whether or not we support the demonstration or we support the demonstration because we oppose to the demonstration. What was that question?
I said, are you
whether we
opposing
support
to the demonstration
yes,
because
we
of Louis Brown as an individual, because of his history, or you are against it because the message they are
the headline is
the demonstration, as I said, whatever it is in bad faith, it's demagoguery, it's playing on the emotion of people who are victim of a systemic economic situation, systemic, structural. You play on it to rally vote, to take power. You don't do that. I told you we made a mistake in 1979. We made a mistake to support the 1979 rice riot. That was not a decision of President Tobin to increase the price of rice. It was a plan. It was a proposal to increase. We now, as students, instead of analyzing the situation, we jump into it, calling on the police and the military. And you know what the 1979 rice riot did? It was the first major violence in the streets in Monrovia in more than 100 years. And that rice riot Alcoport Road was the day Monrovia stood still. That 1979 was the day the coup should have taken place. But instead of that, it provoked the 1980 coup. And since the 1980 coup, the breakdown of law and order, we were activists in the student movement at the time. Now we are sober, we are mature. We're doing retrospective analysis, taking stock. The mistakes we made when we were youth, we don't want to make those same mistakes. And as national stakeholders now, we will not manipulate the young people of this country to be misled and be misguided. And that is how many of the young people were manipulated in the Civil War. That brought a breakdown. And drugs today is a menace among the young people. Any political party, any political leader that is in the business of manipulating the emotions, not the consciences of the people, of the young people in particular, we will resist them. These are falsehoods and mediocrity and demagoguery. And these kinds of behavior are not correct for any political leader. So the title of we tired suffering. Who and you make the we? And what kind of suffering? You got to define the suffering. And so you tired suffering when you go to SKP. Do you solve the problem of suffering? The way to solve the problem is to give our people the proper context of their problem and what you can do to solve it. And don't play on their emotions.
So further to that, you know you are a journalist.
Your name, please.
Johnson Wilago. You are a journalist, and what you must do as journalists is to do a comparative analysis of the global supply chain vis-a-vis the economies of the sub-region. And when you're doing that, take into consideration, for example, inflation. Compare inflation numbers in Liberia with those in Sierra Leone, Guinea, Nigeria, Ghana, etc. Compare the staple. Compare other economic viability across the sub-region. And you will see that Liberia is deforming. So, as Comrade said, it is demagoguery to be thinking and playing on the emotions of people, because all across the sub-region and all across the world,
yes,
there are serious economic issues that are brought about by the civil war, by the war in Ukraine, and preceded by the pandemic, Corona. So when you go to Guinea, you go to Sierra Leone, you go to Ghana, Nigeria, even you go to Europe, there are serious economic issues. And to use those economic issues that are generic across the world and pretend that you are trying to solve a problem, then that's being demagoguery and it's selfish, and that should not be encouraged. This is why we are saying that we need to stop it. If they had a way to proceed, they should use their political parties and advance their protocol agenda as we move to 2023. But not to play on the emotions of the people. Not to play on the emotions of the poor people. Because the poor people may not understand the intricacies involved all across the world. You are journalists. It is incumbent upon you to be able to, propound this issue so that our people will know that what's happening here is not George Weah's problem. It is the problem of the entire world. We are in a situation where even bigger economies are going to recession. And then Liberia is not existing by itself.
No, we're part of a global
We are
economy.
part of a global economy. Wow. Look at the price of diesel. Look at the price of gasoline. Compare it across the region, and then you'll find out how well we are doing. If we were not doing well, we wouldn't have passed the Millennium Challenge Compact. If we were not doing well,
Yes.
the IMF will not. The IMF not here. There's not anything in anybody's pocket. The IMF will tell you that this is what happened. The IMF have given us Liberia a check mark in terms of economic performance and how we're going to move ahead. Those are the issues. And not to talk about when the price of rice in India, the Indian government imposed restriction on exportation of rice, and that will affect the price of rice across the world. And then you say, oh, they raised the price of rice. But those are issues that were referred to as the government should stop. Thank you.
The last question.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, friends, thank you so much for coming. And this is